Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Haunted Casket, number 15. I'm getting better with counting. I passed math finally.
About time.
It's about time. Almost failed math in high school, but I'm not telling that story. Unless we just run out of topics, but I highly doubt that will happen because we can introduce ourselves afterwards. We have Mike D'Agostino. Is that how you say it? D'Agostino.
Yeah, there you
Mike D'Agostino. He's a singer, songwriter, and guitarist for his band Phenomenon.
Phenomenon.
And
Yep.
I've
Right
seen them
here.
play. They're really, really good.
I always mess up that word. It's either phenom or phenomenon.
Yeah.
I'm surprised I could say it straight, to be honest with
Phenomenon,
you.
yeah. Yeah.
But and
Absolutely.
also Alien Enthusiast, Alien Hunter, maybe Men in Black. We're not quite sure yet. And he's also a paranormal investigator. And also you have our weird asses, Trevor, Haunted Faith. I make creepy videos that are paranormal. And we also have Bill Bryan. He is a Ouija board person.
That's all it is, a Ouija board person?
A Ouija board person. Yeah. You are fine. You are a cool Ouija board person.
Yeah, I'll take it.
There you go. Yeah.
And empty casket paranormal, everyone. Anyway.
Yeah, good to see you guys. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, thanks for coming on it, and thanks for dealing with our little needing to postpone from last week.
Yeah. No worries. Yeah, happy to make it happen though. I like you said, Phenomenon is the name of the band, and we kind of base that name off of the fact that we're all from the Hudson Valley, New York. And that's like a big UFO area, especially in the 80s. And interesting kind of factoid to start out with is that whole UFO flap that happened in Westchester and really the Hudson Valley in general. It started on my birthday, like the actual day I was born, which is just an interesting little factoid there. Yeah. So March 24th, 1983 was the night that everybody saw that V-shaped craft. So just kind of a neat little fact.
All right. So I gotta ask the question.
Yeah.
Were you just dropped off?
I don't know. I think I might have been beamed down. Yeah. So I've had like a lifelong interest, and I don't know if it's just me trying to get back to the motherland. But no, I've for sure like always been interested in it, and all of us in the band are. And I had experiences as a kid with the paranormal. And so just forever been really interested. And in the 90s, when I was kind of growing up, UFOs and aliens were really kind of like a big thing, right? There was a lot of movies like Fire in the Sky and stuff like that. And I got really interested in it.
Which we actually got to meet Travis Walton.
That's right. Yeah. Bill and I went to a conference.
Travis Walton. That name sounds familiar. I'm sorry for interrupting, but that name rang a bell. Who?
Yeah, he's the person that Fire in the Sky is based off of. So he was the abductee.
Okay.
In 1975, I think, in Arizona, he was abducted, and it was like a bunch of loggers, and they were coming home, and he saw a light, fire in the sky, and he went out to go investigate it, and he got like blasted back from that UFO, and then they all took off as they got scared.
Leaving him there.
They kind of left him, and then when they came back, they felt guilty. They came back, and he was totally gone and didn't show up for like a week later. They all thought, the police and everybody thought that they killed him. But anyway, in the 90s and all that, was huge. And I feel like right now is, over the last, call it 5 years or so, we're having like another kind of resurgence of this being like a huge topic. So it's interesting. There's a lot of stuff going on, obviously.
It's definitely an interesting time with the congressional hearings. You have the government actually taking it seriously for once. They're releasing UFO videos. They basically admitted that they exist. They just won't say what they are.
Right.
And
right.
yeah, it's been an interesting couple of years for ufologists.
Yeah. And I think, it's fascinating to kind of watching it play out and also seeing kind of the way that it's being approached. Because I think you'll notice too, right? Like everything is around the focus of craft, right? And the conversation is really focused around flying objects, right? Or phenomenon, but there's not really any focus on the beings, right? And especially they're staying away from abduction. So it seems like they're trying to slowly roll the information out and not try to like terrify people and try to get people
disclosure with a lowercase d.
Yeah, it certainly seems that way. And a lot of aspects to it are questionable. It's hard to know if it's being rolled out purposely in just a cleverly disguised way of purposely rolling it out, or if it's truly coming out organically. It's really difficult to know that. I think you can make the case for either. But like I said, it is, kind of a slow roll and sort of like you said, a disclosure with a lowercase d, that they're sticking to the craft, right? Nuts and bolts craft or and really staying away from some of the scarier implications like abduction experiences and things like that.
Then they even stay away from the more spiritual side of it, like the kind of things that Dr. Stephen Greer do with the CE5, where you're contacting aliens through meditation. And
yeah, totally agree. I think there's a mixed bag, but I think you're right as far as the mainstream message is staying away from that. However, I think there's people in the like community, UFO community, so to speak, who are strongly advocating for this to be spiritual. People like Chris Bledsoe, and now new people that have kind of come on the scene as whistleblowers like Jake Barber, describing his experiences with an egg-shaped craft and the kind of feeling that he got, and sort of felt like, to use his own words, he felt possessed by something, but in a positive way. He felt like his indescribable beauty, something that he mentioned. So I think there's a mix, but you're right, from like a government sort of perspective, it's sticking to just like craft and not really diving into spirituality too much. They're sort of cleansing the message, I think.
I'm not gonna lie, every single second of what you just said made sense and was interesting, but I knew nothing about it, so thank you. I was in my head, and Bill, I know you're gonna say shit. Don't shush. But in my head, I'm like, I'm just gonna shut up and let them talk because I'm invested now.
Yeah, maybe we should, take a step back and kind of lay the groundwork a little bit for the audience, or for people that have a different level of interest.
Before you do that, this may or may not be relevant, but Sean asks, which disclosure are you talking about?
Which disclosure? I was really, the way that I'm describing it is not in the sense of like any particular disclosure where I see you have like dates here, but what I just mean is in like the broadest sense of disclosure from like a government entity, or just something from like an official word of saying like, hey, this is legit. Obviously there's experiencers, there's scientists, there's a lot of people that are saying, hey, this is a real phenomenon, but nobody from, I guess, what you could say a position of authority, like a government, has come out and fully admitted it yet. So that's what I mean by when I say disclosure. I just mean like somebody of authority officially confirming it's a legitimate phenomenon.
Yeah, and there's been a lot of talk of, in recent years as, this is going to be the year that they tell us the truth, and every year we get the same thing.
Yeah.
Oh, this is going to be the year. And I'm kind of in line with Chris Bledsoe on this one that it's going to be 2026?
Yeah, it could be. Speaking of Chris Bledsoe, I don't know if you caught his most recent interview that he had on the Sean Ryan podcast.
I just finished it yesterday.
Okay. So he did.
He had me hooked until the last 5 minutes.
Yeah.
I don't. Sean said the last thing that he said, but was a joke. So hopefully this isn't either. But there's the information.
Yeah, no,
But-
that's true. They've been saying
okay.
For a long time they've been saying like this era is the time that we're gonna know the truth.
Yeah.
All this isn't new to me. I have so much shit on my plate, much like Bill, that like I just don't have time to look into anything new. So like whenever I'm handed new information in like my off time when I can just chill,
Yeah.
it's so fucking fun.
Yeah. I mean, I think it probably makes sense. I could give like a really high level kind of overview of kind of like the state of things in terms of like how we got to this point that we're at today, right? From let's say 2017, 18 to today. And, just for people who are listening or want to listen to this later and aren't that familiar with the UFO phenomenon, really the reason things got kicked off and became this story kind of became important again, right? And sort of out there in the greater universe of people talking about it in the mainstream. The reason for that really is because there was an individual named Lou Elizondo, and his boss was Jay Stratton. And Lou Elizondo was part of an organization called ATIP, right? And I can't remember what that stands for, that acronym, but that group was essentially in charge of within the Department of Defense in investigating UFOs. And to make a really long story short, Lou Elizondo, according to his story, he felt that the government and divisions within the Pentagon and the CIA were covering up information that he was looking for. So he felt that if he left and quit, that he could do it better from the outside. And so he did. And part of the really the crucial thing that he was able to do right before he left is he was able to get information out of the government relating to sightings that occurred with our military. So that's the famous Go Fast video where you see the white Tic Tac going really fast. And then also what's called the gimbal video. So Lou Elizondo was responsible personally for getting those videos out into the New York Times.
Did he help get out the Nimitz video as well?
Yes. Yeah. Okay. The Nimitz video. And it's the Nimitz video. And I forget the name of the other one that was on the East Coast. Right.
So Nimitz was West Coast. So that was the Tic Tac. Yep. The Go Fast and the Gimbal were both East Coast.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And he was able to get these out through, kind of like a loophole, so to speak. He was able to pull these out and release them. And that's when the New York Times wrote the article. And then this story kind of exploded and it sort of kicked off the trajectory of all these individuals coming out and investigating and trying to get the public up to speed with it and trying to kind of blow this open and get people involved. Right. So that was kind of the genesis of the current day's, reinvigoration of the UFO topic. And a lot of things have happened since then, but that's sort of like the genesis point over the last, 8 years or so.
I have a question.
Yeah.
And this may be hypothetical, it may be stupid, but I do not know, so I'm going to ask. Whenever you lived in the Hudson Valley and you saw a bunch of stuff happening, or you saw like a major visual experience, right? Did you ever witness a UFO or something just unexplained, and very soon after the government or some higher authority was like, this might be something, and you thought to yourself, I just saw that?
The first part, yes, where I've seen a couple things that are questionable to me, like it could have been potentially something anomalous.
Gotcha.
But then I didn't see any kind of cover up or anything like that take place, or even authorities show up. But
so
I
no
have
Men
seen
in Black?
a couple things. No Men in Black, no creatures walking around, nothing like that. Unfortunately, I'd love to see it, but
because I pieced together you living in the Hudson Valley in the past 2 minutes, and then I'm like, I wonder if he's like saw like I always see the videos like online of like people like capturing. Not saying that any of those are like 100% real, obviously, but like people like saying, "Oh, I see something," and then like someone in the background's like, "Get the video, it's gonna be covered up in 10 minutes," and it's like, but yeah.
I have seen and actually shared it with Bill. Like I'd seen something sort of like drifting through the sky before that just looked like a ball of light essentially. And on the video, in the video it's not as pronounced. I can share it with you after.
Okay.
But in real life, it kind of looked like Venus. It was like a really large ball of light in the sky, and
Where
I
were
thought
you
it
at
actually
whenever you
was
saw this?
Venus at first, but then it was moving, and then it slowly drifted across the sky, and it sort of moved like not in a perfectly straight line. It sort of like meandered. So that was strange. I don't know. It could have been something, prosaic, but I don't know. It was odd.
Or where were you at when you saw this? Like at
I was
home
just
or
like in
at?
my backyard. Yeah.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah, I remember that video. Yeah, I believe when you sent that to me, I ended up putting on my skeptic hat just because I have
Yeah.
to,
Sure. Yeah.
and we scrutinized it. The two of us, we were talking back and forth on it, and I think the if I remember correctly, the end result was both of us sitting there like, I have no idea what the fuck this was.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. And I even had a friend who's a member of MUFON take a look at it, and he was able to pull up if there was anything in the sky, like in terms
Mhm.
of like any sort of like NASA type of thing with like a satellite, etc. And he said there was nothing over there, but who knows? But it was definitely strange, but not totally conclusive. I can't say for sure whether that was anything unusual or not, but it seemed strange at the time.
I used to know. What does UAP mean? Unidentified aeronautic something or
Air,
aero?
unknown aerial phenomenon.
And they,
Uh,
they actually changed it,
so
and
so why
it,
did they
it
go
used to
for
be aerial,
why
but
did
now it's anomalous
Oh, that's
phenomenon.
right. They did change it to now because they wanted to
oh
pull in the submersible stuff too.
Right. It's
So
like
they
all
got rid of the
encompassing
aerial.
now. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
It's
so
funny how the term has changed over the years because it started off as flying saucer, and then when the
yeah.
or when the government started taking it seriously with like Project Blue Book, it became unidentified flying object, and then all the weirdos got hold of that phrase, and now that they're taking seriously again, it's UAP.
Right. Yeah, they keep like trying to remove a stigma from it or something,
Yeah.
but they keep sort of changing the definition.
So UAP, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm just trying to piece together what I'm hearing as I go. But since anomalous, is more vague than flying object, is UAP what they call it if they know it's not a UFO but they still don't know?
No, the UAP is meant to be a more all-encompassing term, so it includes weather phenomenon, light phenomenon, just like
Oh,
anything that's not normal gets covered under UAP until they can identify it.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, all right, because I remember a couple years ago, I don't remember the date or who caught it or what. It was near an army base because they had helicopters on like news flying over it. But there was like some weird like hovering like 2 feet over the ocean type thing on some like private beach near an army base, and the army's like, well, this isn't authorized.
Yeah.
So, all right, gotcha. I'm
Yeah,
learning.
I think they
Learning.
throw for whatever reason too. Some people like to call things drones, and I always have a problem with that. Like, I feel like you should just call it a UAP.
Hmm.
A lot of times, people have a tendency to just call something a drone, but it's like you don't know if it's a drone. Just kind of like the whole drone, thing that we had in New Jersey, and New York, where they were seeing those all over the place. But in some cases, it's really unknown if it was a drone or not. They're just seeing something in the sky.
Yeah,
Uh,
and I have a really hard time accepting their explanation that they just came out with. Was it last week? Where they said, "Oh no, we knew they're just drones. The FAA knew about it." It's like
yeah,
this is all over the news for 2 months,
no, there's no way.
and
I mean, it's
and the
just a
FAA kept quiet. I doubt that.
yeah. They're
Yeah.
totally just
I
glossing over
I
that.
I I fully believe that some of it was drones. I'm sure
Yeah,
people got out there with their drones because they just wanted to be part of it, and some of it was faked and all that. I have no doubt about that. but there's objects out there that didn't show up on infrared, didn't show up on IR, but they could see the light. It wasn't making any noise. It was there for far longer than any commercial drone could actually stay in the sky for.
Yeah. Yeah, that especially that point, because a lot of these were hovering for hours in some cases, and then they're saying they were then going out to sea, which is like there's nothing you can get commercially really that has that type of capability. So
No,
it leads you to think it's either military, yeah, it has to be some kind of advanced tech, because to your point, Bill, I think even the military doesn't have anything that can hover for that long. And
No, not hover.
yeah,
So I mean, we have drones that'll stay out for hours on end, but they're flying, and flying is a whole lot easier than hovering. So
yeah,
hovering takes a lot more power. We just don't have anything with the battery technology to be able to hover for hours on end. It just doesn't exist.
yeah. It's
So
just strange.
is hovering like a pulse coming from the bottom that makes it hover, or what?
No, it's like so conventionally hovering would be like a helicopter.
But it doesn't a helicopter hovers, the drone flies, but they both use propellers to fly. Then what's the difference?
Well, no, there's really no difference. A helicopter and a
Oh,
drone they operate in a similar manner. Biggest difference is a helicopter, with a few exceptions, will have one primary rotor and then one stabilizing rotor, whereas a drone has anywhere from 4 to 12 primary
oh,
rotors, and they can kind of tilt them at angles to allow them to fly and move around and stuff.
gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. I feel like
It's really
I'm like a
okay.
Winnie in this.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Mike. I'm sorry,
No,
Mike.
no, got it.
But
I was just
you
going to
keep going.
mention, it's really interesting, I think, especially for me, because I'm really interested in all the different types of like abduction cases. To me, I find that really interesting. And a lot of whistleblowers are coming out now. It seems that after a few have gone out there, a lot more people seem to be comfortable speaking up. So we're getting like this whole flood of
Mhm.
whistleblowers, and some of these people have had abduction experiences, some haven't, some have just seen things, etc. But
And it's really cool how a lot of them are like special forces,
yes,
um,
super
uh,
credible people, which is
worked on nuclear
exactly where I
nuclear
was
silo
going.
bases. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
I mean, the one that you sent me last week, the guy that worked on the nuclear base.
Mario
Yeah,
Woods, I think was his name.
yeah, that was such a fascinating story, and it lined up so closely to Terry Lovelace,
Yes,
which
absolutely.
if anybody what they're listening does not know who Terry Lovelace is, he was a medic on a Minot, I believe it was. Um,
What's a Minot?
Minot is a Air Force base that houses nuclear weapons.
Oh, okay.
And him and his partner went on a camping trip. They were just kind of like drawn to do this out of nowhere, and they weren't campers, so they go to Devil's Den, and not in Gettysburg, Devil's Den
Oh,
National
okay.
Park, and they get abducted. Um, his partner kind of completely loses it. Terry is interrogated by the government afterwards, ends up going through hypnosis and getting to remember a lot of the stuff that happened to him, and then
Oh, shit.
continued to be abducted over the years. Well, I think he's retired now, but he became a very successful lawyer and all that afterwards.
Yeah,
And his books are like
they're really
my
great.
oh
Yeah,
my God, they're
highly recommend.
fantastic. They're some of my favorite.
Yeah,
And
really good.
yeah, Astonishing Legends, I believe, had him on for a couple episodes going through his whole story, and it was just great to hear it from his own voice and his own point of view on it.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And like you said, Terry Lovelace, and Mario Woods, they both have almost like identical accounts of the beings that they encountered, which is
Yeah.
really fascinating to me. Like it's very much in alignment with both the stories. So both encounters involved this small or short gray aliens that everyone's familiar with
Hmm.
as kind of like the foot soldiers. And then once they were on board this craft, or like they would then encounter a taller being, and it was both taller grays and then a
And it's
mantid.
always seemed like the taller grays were the ones in charge.
Yeah, it seems
And
like
then
they were in charge, and then there's always like this intelligent mantid looking creature who was doing like operations on these
Mhm.
individuals, which is like, it's just crazy how there's so many similarities between these. There
My
was actually
my
another one. God.
my sorry, my favorite similarity between them is that every time anybody reports the mantis, that they always report that it's kind of irritated that we are afraid. Either yells at you to not be afraid, yells at you like, "Hey, you know we're not gonna hurt you. Shut up, stop screaming."
It's like
Because all that
annoyed
cat
that you're like causing them. It's like harder for them to do the procedure.
yeah.
They're like, just shut up and lay there while I whatever cut into your body.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's nuts. I kind of think of it as like trying to cut like a cat's like toenails. Like if you I have a cat and like if you
Oh
try to
yeah.
trim their nails, they go nuts, and it's like just chill out. I'm not gonna hurt you. It's like they think it's
I
a
I
thing.
wrap my cats in a burrito blanket,
Yeah. Oh, that's a good
lay
idea.
lay
Yeah.
them upside down, and then just watch them like occasionally like
Yeah.
squirm.
Yeah. I do that to my birds when I gotta clip their talons.
Yeah.
I forgot you
Yeah.
had birds. Anyway,
Yeah, they're being quiet for now, so that's good.
and every time we call, I never hear them. So I just forgot you had birds.
Count yourself lucky.
Yeah, they
Uh,
live a long. What kind of bird is it? Is it a what did you say it was?
So I have 2 cockatiels. They're both like 10 to 15 years old, and then I
Okay.
have a cockatoo who's about 50, 55.
where
Wow.
So
where where's your cockatoo?
55. Wow.
yeah.
No,
So
lost them.
no, I kicked him out.
That's it. See myself out.
Oh shit! I'm proud of that one. I'm not gonna lie. Anyway, so out of
Yeah.
all your oh
Go ahead. Go ahead.
all right. Like out of all, and this may be a hypothetical question coming from you two that's very indulged in this conversation, but out of all the history of UFOs and aliens and sightings, what would be one story or one topic of it that you just love to talk about? Like it'll just get you going.
Well, for me, one of the things that I'm super interested in the topic is just because of like the whole implication, I think, of what it means on like a greater level,
Gotcha.
right? And I am not certain still. I kind of am leaning one way or the other, but I think I'm even less certain right now of where they originate from. So I'm starting to actually become much less convinced that they're extraterrestrials at this point. I'm really not. I mean, they could be. I can be wrong. I'm not. I don't know, but I'm not convinced that they're from like a distant planet any longer. That's something I think is certainly possible, but I'm not sure that that's the case. And I think that there's a really good case to be made that they're either from here, or they're interdimensional, but they don't necessarily come from a distant planet where they physically traveled on some type of craft and came here. I think that's actually the more unlikely case. Um, but to me, that's a really interesting aspect to it. And I think even, Gary Nolan, who I don't know if you're familiar with who he is, but he's a professor, and Gary Nolan, is also somebody who's doing research on metamaterials that have been found, and well-respected scientist. And he also too is leaning in the same direction where he's unsure really where they're originating from. It actually is starting to see more and more like the science fiction aspect of this is that they're extraterrestrials from like a distant planet, and there's less actual like hard evidence that that's the case. And again, it could be the case, but
You're making my brain think, and I love it.
yeah.
So I recently heard a theory that I really have kind of leaning towards this one, and it's that they originate as extraterrestrials, but they came here so long ago, and they basically set up camp here that the beings that we're seeing today are not from another planet. They originated there, but they're from here. That
They're
they
reproducing.
reproducing or
That
like
we're saying.
not so much that, more like they came here as like to study us, thousands of years ago, tens of thousands of years ago, and they set up shop. I'm thinking under the ocean, and so what we're seeing today is coming from the ocean. That they are terrestrial. They're based terrestrially, but their original home is off world, and I can't fully discount them being from off world because I really believe Bob Lazar, and he was convinced they were off world and actually named what star system they came from.
Yeah, the Bob Lazar case is interesting, though. One thing with Bob is like I don't think he's lying at
He might
all.
not have been
But
told the whole truth though.
well, one theory that I have, which again I can be completely wrong, but I think that I think it's first of all Bob Lazar. He worked on at Area 51, working on craft, trying to reverse engineer the propulsion system, right? So that's what he was doing there. For those that don't know, but in the course of doing that, at one point, information was shared with Bob that some background information on where potentially these craft are coming from.
And it was
Right?
Alpha Centauri, if I remember correctly.
Exactly. And to me, that data seems kind of irrelevant. So to me, to what he's doing, so I think there's a potential that was purely misinformation that's fed to somebody to see if they hear it out in the public, then they know who's spilling the beans.
I would agree with you but because Betty Hill had drawn that star map, and several astronomers who have tried to figure out where that star map was, pointed towards Alpha Centauri, so it lined up with Bob Lazar's stories. That's kind of where I have a.
Is that a part of Orion or no? Alpha Centauri.
I don't remember.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it is or not. And hey, they can be. Like I said, I'm not married to these ideas, but I think it's an interesting component to it. And also there's people get kind of like,
yes,
flustered.
Alpha Centauri is part of the Orion system.
Okay,
it's one of the stars on the belt.
I thought that that it may be, and because obviously there's so much in ancient history and ancient cultures, obviously the pyramids, etc. There's so many things that have a reference to it, right? And but another thing that's really interesting throughout history are just like stories, right? Like ancient stories, and beings play a role in these ancient stories, and angels and demons. And when I say angels and demons and like start talking anything that touches on religion, people immediately get flustered and they're like, oh, they get like all upset about it. But I think that there is potentially something to it. And just because something has like a connotation with the religion, it doesn't necessarily mean it's religious per se, but just a way that things could be described.
Yeah.
Well, right? And there's a lot of
a great way to kind of get over that is if you look at Aleister Crowley, and when he was doing meditations in Egypt, he ended up talking to an entity through these meditations called Lem. Right. And Lem told him that in the past he's been called an angel, he's been called a demon, and in the future they'd be known by other names. Crowley drew a picture of Lem, and it's a gray alien.
It looks a lot like a gray alien, yeah.
Yeah.
I've seen it.
And then you have Chris Bledsoe, who's describing these beings, and these beings line up with, things that are, in the Bible. That they're lining up with artwork that's at the Vatican. They're also lining up with alien sightings. So then the question comes up, are the aliens angels, or are angels aliens?
Yeah, he full stop believes that they are angelic, and there's no mincing words about it. I mean, his book is called UFO of God, and he's a Christian. He feels very much that these are angelic, and a lot of people do, believe it or not. A lot of people that are involved within the military, who have been involved in these psionic groups like Jake Barber and others from Skywatcher, feel the same way. And these are people that are also not like particularly religious people, but this is the conclusion that they've come to. And even Jake Barber has also admitted that there is like a beautiful energy associated with these, and there's also some of these that it's not so much. And so it's an interesting take. It's how do you interpret something which is paranormal, and how do you categorize it and put it in a box? And
Mm-hmm.
the funny thing is, the answer to that is religion, because religion actually is a description of the paranormal.
Oh
And
yeah.
I don't
Oh
know if
yeah.
you've had a chance to read anything by Diana Pasulka, but she's a really brilliant professor of religion, and she wrote American Cosmic and another book. And she talks about the religious impact that UFOs and the whole phenomenon has had on religion and Catholicism and Christianity. And it's of her opinion that she thinks that a lot of these interactions that are described in the Bible, like the stigmata, for example, were really alien UFO encounters.
There's quite a few stories from the Bible that sound an awful lot like alien abduction
Yeah,
or alien
really
sightings.
do. Yeah.
And so, it definitely begs the question, you know, eh, are is the Bible and our religion just an interpretation of seeing these aliens, or maybe they're not aliens at all, and then the religion becomes true? And but
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think like both can be true, because there's something that is interacting, and it does seem to have a message, and you can either choose to believe it or not. That's kind of up to you. But for
Mhm.
the experiencers, there does seem to be a message with some of these. Where I get kind of confused on some of this is I listen to somebody like Chris Bledsoe, who, if anybody's listened to him, the guy's pretty compelling. It's kind of almost hard not to like him. And
Oh yeah.
he's very like sincere, at least he comes across that way, and believable. But another thing that occurs to me is, like, he obviously has a very his take is that they're angels, right? And
Right.
they're
He's he's
angelic, and it's
he's
and it's
looking at his whole experience through the glasses of religion.
yes, for sure. And he feels about it in a certain way, and that's fine. And I can't say
Mhm.
if that's right or wrong. But from an objective perspective, I look at some of these experiences, and it just occurs to me that, like, you know, angelic beings, like, maybe won't scare the shit out of you, and like take you against your will and do a bunch of horrifying shit. So it's like some of that stuff
Well,
is hard for me to
how
reconcile. you know
however, so in the ancient Hebrew, depictions of the angels,
yeah.
they don't say in the ancient Hebrew, "Be not afraid." That's a modern way to phrase it. If
uh
you go back and go directly from ancient Hebrew to English, it translates more closely to "Please stop screaming,"
Okay.
which lines up pretty close to the
Yeah,
mantis creatures
yeah,
that
yeah,
are telling you, "Please stop screaming. I'm not gonna hurt you."
right. Yeah, I think that was actually in, I forget whose book, but it might have been Terry Lovelace and Devil's Den, when they're communicating to him. Or no, it's Whitley Strieber. That's where it's from. In Whitley
Yes.
Strieber's
Yeah.
book, they're saying to him telepathically, "What can we do to make you stop screaming?" Which is also kind of just terrifying. Its
Mhm.
nonchalant attitude is pretty scary.
Yeah.
But
And I think he had a pretty good answer to that, what was it? He just wanted them to touch him or something like that. So it's just like, so he understands that this is actually real, and as soon as
yeah,
he they
yeah,
did that, he's like, "Okay, this is real, this is actually happening," and then he started paying attention.
yeah. It's strange. I mean, it's hard to know, because it seems, if you listen to people who have had experiences like Chris and others, a lot of the experiences that they have, the beings often, whether it's the lady that Chris is talking to or any of the other beings, they kind of speak to him almost in like riddles.
Yeah.
They say a lot of things that are sort of like symbolic, or things that occur that are symbolic, like a bull, like an imaginary bull, or like like translucent bull almost running him over, and him seeing stars in the bull's body, which is one of the encounters that happens to
Mhm.
him. And it's like, what the hell does that mean? Like, if you have a message for me, why not just tell me what the message is, instead of these weird symbolic experiences? So some of this is really hard to understand from that perspective.
Well, there's there's another thing out there when talking about like the paranormal and seances and Ouija boards and things like that, that there's kind of an unwritten rule that, you know, spirits can't tell you certain things. They can't tell you everything, but they
Mm,
could kind of skirt around it by giving
yeah,
you a riddle, or phrasing it in a weird way, or showing you a weird vision that allows you to figure it out without them actually telling you. And
yeah,
it parallels the alien stuff pretty damn close. And
it does.
even
Yeah.
and like there's definitely a lot of parallels between UFOs, alien abductions, and paranormal, like ghost stuff. There's so many haunted locations that have UFO activity. Mid
Hmm.
Orange, Conjuring House, and then you have, you know, so many cases of places where there's alien abduction, and after the alien abduction, there's poltergeist activity in the house. Chris
Right.
Bledsoe is a great example of that.
Right. Yeah, it's strange. It seems like it's all interconnected, and it's
Mhm.
very hard to figure out because it's all like to us, it's seemingly like almost nonsensical, right? There's like this trickster element and this unpredictability of it where it doesn't seem like you can wrap your head around like what's going on. But a lot of these cases do involve both, UFO cases involve other things outside of just the UFO phenomenon, such as in some cases people see dead loved ones in
Yeah.
some of these cases, right? In some cases where UFOs or craft are seen, people have said that they've seen Bigfoot. So there's like this mixing of paranormal activity that just seems to all be combined with the whole UFO and alien phenomenon.
So I don't know if Tanya's ever told you this, but her one of her theories is that um at least some of the ghosts that we experience on a ghost hunt are actually aliens trying to communicate with us, because as a species we're a very spiritual species, that they feel like it's easier for us to accept talking to a ghost than an alien, so they project themselves as a ghost to kind of get a message across.
Mm. It's interesting. It could be. It could be. It seems like there's somebody who was on Sean Ryan's show who was involved with the whole like Monroe Institute, like Robert Monroe, and all the remote viewing, kind of like quote unquote astral projection, and all
Hmm.
this stuff. And there's some within those conversations around the whole topic of remote viewing and things like that. It Some people feel that our current civilization, we think we're so smart and this is we're at like the height of our intelligence, but some people feel that we're actually very smart in terms of like the material world and kind of like the intellect side,
But
but
we lose the spiritual side.
we're very dumbed down on the spiritual side and kind of
Yeah.
like esoteric knowledge, and like there's a whole other power in that, with kind of like an intuitive side to us that we have not nurtured at all. As a society, we don't really do that, right? We don't, like, for the most part, mainstream wise, right?
Hmm.
It's not considered to be something that's important, like increasing your intellect is with like just reading and math and etc.
Yeah. Well, Graham Hancock actually had a really interesting thought on that. So he's not into the paranormal or the UFO stuff or any like that. He's more like that we are actually the second chance of civilization on this planet, that there was civilization prior to 12,000 years ago. And some of his theories have been proven correct. A lot of them haven't yet, but his thought was that there was big civilizations around the world, tens of thousands of years ago, before civilization is thought to have started. And then there was a big cataclysmic event that wiped it all out. That cataclysmic event happened 12,000 years ago. It was a comet hitting the earth. We know that happened. But his thought on it was the only ones that survived were like the hunter gatherer types that were still around. Because even today we have hunter gatherer tribes around. So
Right.
there are people who a lot of times by their own choice decide to, shun the modern, things that we're doing. They're more naturalistic, they're more brute force kind of thing. So his thought was there was, humans evolved two different ways. There was the spiritual side and then there's the brute force side. The brute force was your hunter gatherers who were kind of out and about doing things when this cataclysm hit. So all the spiritual ones kind of got killed out for the most part. and you're left with just hunter-gatherers, the brute force, the pure intellect without the spiritual side of it, and that's who we are today. That's who we're descended from.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, it's fascinating. I think that it's, I love listening to Graham Hancock, and also others like Jimmy Corsetti, I think that's his name, who also does a lot of research sort of in the same vein as a Graham Hancock. But it's fascinating. It's fascinating to think that, potentially things like the pyramids were built by like maybe not even the Egyptians, right? That they may have just kind of taken them over when they moved into that area, that they might go back to like Atlantean times, potentially.
Which
So it is interesting.
I'm glad you brought up Atlantis, 'cause I just saw this a couple of days ago, but somebody took the latest mapped like underwater mapping of the planet, and then dropped the sea levels by 400 feet, which is about where it would be 12,000 years ago. And right where Atlantis is supposed to be, there's a big landmass.
Oh, wow.
And Atlantis was supposed to have existed 12,000 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah, it's super. Like, that's the Hunger Dryas, right? 12,000
Yes.
years ago was like the
Yep.
cataclysm, and then civilization sort of had to start over. But also, I don't know if you've listened to Jimmy Corsetti. I mean, he thinks that it's at the Rashat structure in the Sahara. He thinks potentially that's where Atlantis was.
That's the Eye of the Sahara.
Yeah, yeah. It's an interesting theory. And, he describes, if you even look at, the landmass, it looks like there was a huge deluge that kind of wiped out that whole area. And the Sahara used to be like a rainforest
right
at one time. But yeah, it's interesting. As far as like, what I was kind of the point that I was making is that I think that maybe we've lost our connection to certain things over the period of time because we've only focused on like the intellect. And it seems like we're at this precipice now as a society, and like collectively, our consciousness collectively is starting to realize slowly that there's like a lot more to this experience than just the purely objective and intellectual side, right? It seems like that's starting to come out into the mainstream. I don't know if you heard this yet, but I actually just saw this the other day. It was Post Disclosure World. Have you ever heard of that podcast? They had an individual on there named James Hodgkins, right, from Skywatchers. And he's one of the guys that works with Jake Barber and others relating to the whole group of individuals who psionically can connect with UFOs, bring them down, and then people like Jake Barber fly a helicopter and pick it up and bring it to whoever is contracting them, probably some aerospace company, right? But this guy, James Hodgkins, is actually one of the psionic assets. And the first time he ever spoke. I think this podcast was released just yesterday. And super interesting what he's saying, because the guy is saying that, and he's one of these individuals who psychically can put himself, allegedly can put himself into a meditative state where he can then connect with this NHI and actually access craft, and then bring that craft, fly it essentially through whatever you want to call it, remote viewing, or psionically connect with this craft. These crafts are driven not with controls or anything. They're driven psionically, and he's been able to land them. And in the process of doing this, he's had communication with NHI a couple of times.
That sounds an awful lot like Stephen Greer's CE5, but taken to a whole new level.
Exactly. And Stephen Greer has been getting so much shit for so long, with people saying that he's a phony and CE5 is bullshit. Like people like Lou Elizondo even claiming that Stephen Greer is full of shit. And Jake Barber, this guy, James Hodgkins, and many others have now come out and said that CE5, they don't call it CE5, but the same protocol essentially is how these government agencies and now private agencies are accessing craft.
So last May, I took part in a CE5 event. It was the trifecta that Get Haunted put on, and going up to that, I was really fascinated by CE5. I did not know if it was real or not. I was open to it being real, but I didn't know. So we did it, and fortunately, it was very, very cloudy that night. So you could not see the stars at all. There was heavy clouds. So like, well, let's do it anyway and see what happens. So we go through this whole meditation and all that, and we're trying to reach out to whatever's out there.
Yeah.
And then we spent the next like 45 minutes, an hour, just sitting in this field, looking up at the sky, talking amongst each other. And all of a sudden, everybody got quiet because there is a goddamn light in the sky below the clouds. So you can't say it was a satellite. You can't say it was a star. This is below the clouds. And we're seeing these lights just kind of, they're not there for long. They're just kind of like popping up and gone, popping up and gone. For like an hour, we're just sitting there watching it. Rob comes over to me. He's like, dude, are you seeing this, or are my eyes playing tricks on me? I'm like, no, I'm seeing this. What the hell is going on? Like it was so wild to see. Like, and I've never seen anything like it. I wouldn't call it necessarily an orb. It certainly was not a craft. It was literally just, a
like
light that flashed in the sky. Yeah. Steven was there. He saw it. Yeah, it was weird. I definitely am very much looking forward to doing it again at Trifecta down in Kentucky. And I know the meditation they're going to be doing there is a little bit different than what we did up in Pine Bush. So I'm excited to see what happens.
Yeah, that's awesome. And if you ever do it in this general area, let me know, because I'd love to participate in that. But the last thing I wanted to say about this guy, because I thought it was like a really interesting point, is oh yeah, go ahead.
Before you say that, I'm sure you guys saw, I found that podcast you were talking about with James Hodgkins.
Yep.
Dina, I threw it into our group chat, but you can go ahead.
Oh, cool. Yeah, it's a great interview. That's perfect. I see now. That's exactly what I'm talking about. And so one of the things that the host of the podcast asks him is like, the topic is like these egg-shaped craft, right? Like that's the thing that's on everybody's mind now, because Jake Barber in that recent interview with Ross Coulthard said that, he's picked up these egg-shaped craft before, right? So it turns out that that's one of 8 different types of craft that they're familiar with working with. And supposedly these egg-shaped craft are never occupied. So there's never like an entity driving them. And like I said, they're operated psionically, either by the NHI, and these guys are somehow able to tap in to the frequency and drive them.
You could almost call that one a drone.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it kind of is in a sense, right? So the host asks him, like, where do they come from? Right? Like if you're able to tap into it and just like make them appear, like where the hell are they coming from? Right. And this sounds insane, but this guy, James Hodgkins, the guy who's being interviewed, he says that they actually that NHI has spoken to him. I guess he claims he can communicate sometimes, or he gets messages sometimes when he's in this state. Not that he's really having a conversation, but he sometimes gets messages. And when he was meditating on that question of like where are these originating from, the information that was given to him is that the egg-shaped craft, they come from where we would call the afterlife. And he said that these craft manifest, and that was all the information, was that they come from a place that we would consider to be the afterlife, which is amazing. It's almost like interdimensional, right? Which kind of fits into this whole phenomenon, because these things just seem to like pop in and out of reality.
Yeah.
And somehow they can do that. But I thought that was, pretty interesting to hear from somebody firsthand who claims to interact with these NHI.
Yeah. And you're talking about using meditation to kind of contact these NHI. I know the Spirit Box, the SB7, was originally designed not for ghost hunting, but to be able to talk to extraterrestrials.
Really?
And then, it got co-opted by the paranormal world. But knowing that, the one night Tanya and I decided to try to use the Estes method with the SB7 to try to contact extraterrestrials. So anyone who has ever been on a ghost hunt with me and we're doing the Estes method and things start going slow, you're going to hear me start asking about time, because from what I've heard from the new Kirks is that's the questions that starts getting their attention. That's how you start shifting over to talking to interdimensional or ultra terrestrials or extraterrestrials. So we decided we're going to do that stupidly right in my own living room. And so yeah, it was, we recorded the whole thing. It's up on my YouTube channel. In fact, I'll throw the link in the post if anybody's looking to go watch it. It's about an hour, and it, by the end of it, I'm in tears because I'm so incredibly terrified by the end of it. It was one of the best Estes methods sessions I've ever been part of. Mike, I know I sent it to you right after we did it. I remember you called me like a couple days later and he's like, yeah, dude, I haven't slept in like 3 days. That was scary as shit.
It was creepy, man. And honestly, it was a great session. I recommend anyone who's interested in this to watch your video that you did, because it was fascinating. It really was. And the responses that you were getting were clearly intelligent responses, right?
Yeah.
Like,
It
you
had
were
me
asking
going in
questions
different
and
parts
you
of
were,
the house, looking
yeah.
outside.
Yeah, it was creepy. I definitely I was like creeped out trying to go to bed at night for like a week after watching that.
Well, so there was something that you found in that I didn't notice. And that was every time that they said they were outside or wanted me to open the gate or let them in, every time that happened, my dogs would bark.
Right.
And my dogs
Yeah.
were outside for during this whole
Right.
thing because I didn't want them in the house. And yeah, that just adds a whole new level of
Which
creepy
made
to
it
it.
extra creepy. Yeah. I know, it's nuts.
Yeah, we ended up doing that 2 other times, both of which we recorded, both of which are up on the YouTube channel. Uh, the second one we did at the date and time that they told us to. That wasn't it. I hate to say it wasn't as good of an Estes method because it was quite profound, but it wasn't like as clear back and forth communication kind of thing. Um, and we walked away with more questions than answers.
Yeah.
And one of the things that really stood out with that second session was I started asking about Bigfoot, and they said, "Yeah, we study him too." You know, not saying that he's an extraterrestrial, that he's alien, that he's associated with them. It's just that they're studying him as well as they're studying us.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that they brought up was the Shanley. So we ended up going to the Shanley to do a little mini investigation, but mainly to do an Estes there to try to contact aliens. And it just so happened that Lance from the Pine Bush UFO Museum was there that night, so
Oh, wow.
he got to witness most of it. And through that was actually a little extra scary for Tanya because it kind of sounded like she might have some screen memories, which would indicate possible abduction when she was younger.
Oh, man. That's so scary.
Yeah,
That is really interesting, though. Speaking of Lance and the Pine Bush UFO Museum, I was actually playing music next door at the place. It's called Long Street Tavern. It's right next door to the museum. And
really food there. Service is a little questionable.
Yeah,
we
they're good
ate there
people
during
over there, though. I definitely play there from time to time. They're good folks. But really interesting thing was randomly this guy comes in. I saw Lance come in to the bar with some other dude and like a few other people. And I realized it's Randall Nickerson, which is like a documentary filmmaker and someone who's like pretty involved in the UFO world. So he just happened to come in, and it was right when he released his documentary about the aerial phenomenon, where the school that had the incident where the UFO comes down and lands.
Mm-hmm. That's the one in Africa, right?
Yeah, and I got to meet him and talk to him for a little bit about it, which was really cool. But yeah, you never know who you're going to run into at that bar, especially because it's right next to the UFO museum.
Yeah. So while we're talking about Pine Bush, just so people know, they have a UFO fair every year. This year, it's going to be on Saturday, June 7th from 10 to
Yeah.
4. They shut down the main street. They have vendors. They have alien costume contests. They usually have speakers at night, although it doesn't look like they've announced who the speakers are going to be yet. But it was at one of those speaker events that you and I went and got to meet Travis Walton.
Yeah.
Amongst several other people.
Yeah, really fascinating. And it was cool to hear Travis's story firsthand and how it really differed from the movie. And even like the beings that he saw, how they really differ. And speaking of that, I was listening to Jesse Michaels' podcast. I don't know if you watched that, but it's a great podcast. And he had Whitley Strieber on recently. And he was talking about the gray alien because like Whitley Strieber really made that famous and put that into like the zeitgeist, right? Of like for a time that was what everybody associated with aliens, and still to this day that gray.
Yep.
But he was saying how that's not really too accurate, that picture. He was like, it was a good artist rendering, but he's like, they don't really like look like that. He's like, they actually look very insect like. And I thought that was kind of an interesting comment because a lot of people say that. And even some, I think it's in South America, some native people, someone had recently, and I don't remember who did this, but someone had recently reached out to like a native group and asked them about gray aliens. Like, hey, do you know what this is, basically? Right. And they referred to them, they said yes. And they referred to them as the ant people that come from underground.
Ant people.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. And a lot of people say these are insect-like, and there's even clearly mantis-like creatures. And so it's strange, it's like it really makes you think. It's like as soon as you feel like you might be onto something, there's like another curveball. And the reason I brought that up is because even Travis Walton says they don't really look like the Greys. And when Travis Walton said that, and also Whitley Strieber, who made it famous, they both say that they don't really totally look like it. They were small and weird looking and kind of like tan or ashen color, but they're not just like that exact picture. Yeah.
which is funny because there's so many reports of when Whitley Strieber's book Communion came out, people going into bookstores and seeing that cover and having complete breakdowns.
I think it's the eyes. So he was saying that he's like the thing that's most accurate about that picture, he said, is the eyes. He's like, those eyes are what it's like.
Now I want to see it.
Big black eyes.
Yeah, just look up Whitley Strieber Communion. You'll get the cover of the book.
Whitley Strieber. I didn't. Okay. And then Communion.
Yeah.
Communion.
So Communion is a fascinating book. His stories is really, really interesting. Most of it happened right there in the Hudson Valley, not too far from Pine Bush and the Shanley. And it's a very believable story. Whitley Strieber is very believable. But if you start reading his books that came off after it, it starts getting really weird and hard to believe.
Yeah.
For those of you who don't know, I'll pull the picture up.
Cool. Yeah, he does. Some of his stuff is a little out there. Even in Communion, some of the claims are weird. It's like there's other paranormal activity that occurred other than the abductions, and the abductions themselves are very strange. And what's really interesting is that it seems like these UFOs or aliens, whatever we want to call them, have like a sense of humor, so to speak, because he said that one thing that happened, and he claims this is real, right? It sounds outrageous what I'm going to say, but one night when he was at the cabin where he was having these abduction experiences, he was in a hot tub, and it was him and his wife, and he was saying that like he wishes they would show themselves so his wife could see the craft and like believe it. And then he said that shortly after this, what looked like a bunch of wooden logs wrapped in Christmas lights floated over his house. And he thinks that like they just manifested that way as like a joke. Like, here's our ship. And it was just a bunch of wooden logs with, like, he said, looked like Christmas lights tied around it. So he
Yeah.
makes claims like that, and it's kind of throws you. It's like, man, that's a tough one. It's a tough one to believe.
So then you gotta start questioning, can they show themselves in a way that you would most likely accept it. So for with Whitley Strieber, he was writing science fiction and whatnot. So his abduction case is a little bit more out there. But then you have like Chris Bledsoe, who's very, very religious. His abduction case is much more in line with being angelic and angels and Christianity. You have Terry Lovelace, who talks about when he was a kid being abducted, not by grays, but by monkeys, because
Yeah.
he was a kid and that wouldn't have scared him. So
No,
it's like each abduction is like specific to the person, so that it's they're more willing to accept it.
Yeah.
not the monkey part. That threw me off. But whenever you said willing to accept it, I know it's just a movie, but you guys have seen The Knowing?
Yeah.
I don't think I saw it.
The Knowing, it's a great movie. I'm not gonna spoil it. I will say though, is the lead actor is Nicolas Cage, and he has kids, and the kids go to the school. Yeah, I think it was like 50 years or 100 years. I forget which one it was. It's one of the two. 50 to 100 years before, back in the day at that same school, these kids in the class made a time capsule of like just like pictures and trinkets and shit. Well, one of the kids uh went nuts, hid in the closet and went nuts, and started writing all these numbers down onto this piece of paper. Random order 1539425, like random shit. Put it into the time capsule. Years later, they dig it up. Hey, they make this whole big like deal out of it, like assembly, parade, everything. They dig it up, and Nicolas Cage's son gets this random paper because each kid got a
Like
thing
an
from the
item.
past kid.
Yeah.
Yeah, Nicolas Cage's son got it and goes, "Dad, what the hell is this?" And he goes, "I don't know." So he throws it in his backpack. He wasn't supposed to. They were supposed to keep it at the school, but that's not the point. Take it home, and then um there was a mass tragedy, like a plane crash that next day, and Nicolas Cage's job was at a professional, like at a school. That's not really that important. So he gets to stay home, and he gets bored and looks at that paper and goes, "What the fuck is this?" And writes all the numbers down onto his whiteboard, and was piecing it together. And every other section of numbers was a date. He gets halfway through that set. He gets halfway through the whole list and realizes these dates are in the future. And then I won't say any more about those, but over time, those dates happen and happen and happen, and aliens come down that look like humans, like like us. So they're all in suits. And what happens after that ties into the date, and it's really weird. It's really weird.
Wow. I got to see this movie. I can't believe I've never
And
seen it now.
yeah, and how it happens at the end is surreal. But I will
Mhm.
say this: it's kind of a giveaway. But how it happens, I won't say. The kids, Nicolas Cage's kids, well, his son, he meets this girl that has a daughter. His girlfriend dies, whatever. Um, but the girl's daughter and his son, they end up like becoming friends, and somehow, some way, not gonna tell you, they are tricked into starting a new civilization on another planet.
Wow.
There's a whole backstory onto why and how that happens, but I'm not gonna
You
tell you.
know, this actually reminds me of something that's super interesting, and you telling us about that movie just reminded me. So, one way that people think that some of this UFO information is leaked out into the public that wouldn't be otherwise and would be illegal otherwise is some people think that it comes out in like movies and books as fiction. because it
Yep.
would be illegal to tell people to like government information. But if you're just like, if it's a work of fiction, it's a different
Yeah.
scenario. Jake Barber was talking about that, how he thinks that there's a lot of movies and things that are intertwined of truth mixed in with some bullshit. And that, kind of like an Independence Day type of thing where it's like,
Great
that
movie.
movie's obviously fiction, but like there might be elements in there that have some truth to them.
In the Independence Days where like those giant leg spider machines come out of the ground, right?
No.
I think that's War
No,
of the Worlds,
that's War of
maybe.
the Worlds. That's my
Yeah.
bad. There was Independence Day again. Like, what's like the main?
Will Smith, and they like invade and blow everything up.
It's a giant like disc shaped aliens
Yeah.
come down, and they do like the laser pulse over the White House and blow up the whole
Oh,
DC.
okay. You're bringing back the okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. I was thinking of the War of the Worlds, but anyway, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's when you mentioned all the numbers, the kid was getting all the numbers.
Yeah.
So well, so
Oh, sorry.
if you go watch, especially our first Estes session where we were trying to contact the aliens, one thing you'll find is we get tons and tons of numbers. It's just number after number after number after number. I have yet to figure out what these numbers are. There's definitely some meaning behind them. And any time we've done this and I've tried to ask for advice on how to figure out what these numbers mean, silence. Whatever we're
Yeah.
talking, it just no matter how good it is, it just goes quiet. They will not tell me.
And to go more in depth on the numbers thing, because I was going to keep it a secret for the movie, but it's not that watching it will the visual representation will still be breathtaking. All the numbers in the end, I won't say like what the tragedies were, because the tragedies in the future are key to the show. But at first, it was month, day, year, and then it would skip like 10 numbers, and then month, day, year over and over and over. Turns out those skipped numbers in between the month, day, and year are actually coordinates on Earth. So he'd be like, oh, on March 3rd, 2027 or whatever, right? Go to this coordinates, and it's the middle of a field. And the first tragedy, the second one, he gets to the middle of a field. Well, he's on the interstate with fields to the left and right as if he was driving through Iowa or something. And he stops and he realized, like, why is everyone stopped? Like, there's nothing happening. Not 10 seconds later, plane, watch it crashes live in front of him, shatters, blows up, kills everyone.
Wow. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
You have to check it out. Classic
Great
Nick
movie.
Cage.
I rented it on YouTube for I think $5 for
Yeah.
it's really cheap. It's from 2012, 13ish, I think.
Gotcha. Yeah, cool. Always looking for a good UFO flick.
Yeah.
But speaking of them looking like people, they're like Travis Walton, right? He also, when he was abducted, there were those little entities, but there was also people, like Nordic looking, very perfect looking people, men and women.
And then
so
you got
interesting.
You got Terry Lovelace, who said he saw people in uniform on
Right.
the craft.
Yeah.
And I believe Whitley Strieber saw something similar as too, right? Didn't he?
Yeah, there might have been with him. Yeah, so it's like, what the hell is that? Some people think it's potentially like a breakaway civilization. There's a book, Closer Encounters, which I was telling you, Bill, about, which is really, really good book. But in that book, he describes, a lot of instances where people see these Nordics, and some people think that is a breakaway civilization that occurred like at some point in like the 40s into the 50s, and then they just kind of like went off in their own direction and left us all behind.
Yeah. So I wanted to touch on, I started thinking about, I used to think about this a lot, but listening to Chris Bledsoe and Sean Ryan, he said a few things that made this come right back to the forefront of my mind. So he was saying that he was seeing little people that they weren't in line with what we call the grays.
Yeah.
They were just like smaller people around his house. and I know he called he said some of them were more ashen, some of them were more brownish. But from an appearance standpoint, what he was describing sounds an awful lot like fae, like the Celtic like fairies and whatnot. And if you look at the lore of the fae, and them abducting people and changelings and getting too close to their circles, that you get lost in there for a long period of time, it lines up very, very close to alien abduction lore.
Yeah.
I mean, they had fairy circles, we have crop circles. You'd be abducted for long periods of time with the fae. Travis Walton was abducted for upwards of a week. And like even the changelings could be looked at as an attempt to do a hybrid of alien and human. So it's fascinating to dig into the fae lore and the alien lore and watch those overlaps. Have you ever kind of looked into that kind of stuff?
Yeah, it's actually I was actually just listening to Diana Pasolka talk about that, specifically about those small entities. And again, she's a religious scholar, and Chris obviously taking this from a perspective of him believing these are angelic, and I guess having a Christian slant on these things. She cited a verse in the Bible that I can't remember what it is, but there is an instance of an interaction with an angel, and she actually went to the Vatican and was able to look at their records. These records actually that are like, they come from, I don't know how long ago, but these are like source material essentially for some of these stories with saints, where some of these saints that had like interactions with angels. And the description of it is extremely similar to Chris Bledsoe, where it's like a small, almost like childlike figure that has like a glowing skin. And that's how he said that those small beings were. They were like almost like lit by like, almost had like moonlight coming from them. And he said that they looked like glossy, like they were like very like almost like a porcelain like glossiness to them, which is strange. But there seems to be some similarities in both religion and, like you said, and like I guess fairy lore as well.
Yeah, about a year ago on the paranormal podcast, there was somebody on who they wrote several books comparing the fae lore and the alien lore, and it was really like, I was already thinking that the two lined up really closely, and they gave even more examples. And I can't remember who the hell was on it. I'll have to see if I could find it. It was Jim Harold's paranormal podcast. But
yeah, I mean,
if I find it, I'll send it to you.
Who knows if they can change the way that we view them? Like, I have a feeling that a lot of this stuff is all the same thing. Like, I think that maybe like the fae, the jinn, right, the angels and demons, like this might be all the same thing. It's just everybody sees and interprets something. Like even today, if 20 people are outside and witness something that happens, even like a car accident, you'll have like several different descriptions of like how it played out, because everybody kind of sees it from their own perspective. So with different cultures, I could see how you get like different interpretations of a similar phenomenon.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, especially in the paranormal like aspect of that as well. Like, it happens almost every time, to where if we're in a large group, especially in a smaller area like a hallway or something, a shadow figure, something visual, an audio sequence, EVP, it's like there will be, if it's a shadow figure, I saw it. Everyone's usually right about the general area, but it's like, I saw it peep out, well, I saw it crawl, I saw it jump. It's like, you're all right. And then even with EVPs, I heard dog, I heard God, I heard good. It's like, you're all probably right.
Yeah. It's funny, and it's also interesting how sometimes it seems to be tailored for somebody, where like somebody can see something and then nobody else does. And like I had mentioned, I had paranormal experiences as a kid that were more in like I guess like the spirit realm. You'd say it wasn't like UFO or alien or anything like that. But one of the things that happened to me was or not all, but most of my experiences were like auditory. Right? It was like I heard a voice,
Mhm.
and one of the times when this happened, I wasn't alone. It was me and my sister, and she didn't hear anything, and I heard it clear as day in my ear. It was actually like whispered into my ear, and that was the tone. It wasn't like a talking voice; it was like a whisper. But like I said, she didn't hear anything or think anything was happening, and to me, it was very clear. It was one of all those experiences I had as a kid. They weren't the type of experience where like maybe something happened. It was like very clear. So those experiences were with it, like beyond a shadow of a doubt that they occurred.
Yeah, we get that even with the when we do ghost hunting, we'll have something happen, and sometimes everybody experiences the same thing, and other times it's completely different for one person,
Yeah.
or everybody gets something completely different. Or I even experienced this once where we had, it was probably about 10 of us, and everybody saw the exact same thing except for one guy who was looking in the same spot saw nothing whatsoever.
Yeah.
And he was also the biggest skeptic. He probably didn't want to see it.
Yeah.
Hell,
Uh,
I remember one time at MSP. Now that you say that, uh, you've never been to MSP. I was about to ask you. Never mind. Um, MSP down in 3D, long hallway. It's where they keep the most violent of criminals. Um, long ass hallway. Excuse me. And we had a group, and at the end of the hallway, people were like saying, like, "Do you see that a shadow?" Was like going back and forth, right? And so this person took a picture. Uh, and by the way, this was after the investigation. Like they weren't taking pictures with their phone out and ruining the moment. This was like in free roam, and we had a group, and the person kept seeing the shadow, and three people were like, "Yeah, I see that." They took a picture and captured this like weird light, like stretched light anomaly, and then two people were like, "Yeah, I saw the shadow figure. Couldn't see the shoulders. I saw the hands, but it looked like a shadow." And there was just one girl that was like, "I saw something, but I don't know how to describe it, but I saw something." Well, and her friends were like trying to convince her it was a shadow. You saw a shadow, and she goes, "It wasn't a shadow." And then they checked their phone, saw this light anomaly, and she goes, "That's what I saw."
Wow.
Their
Oh,
phone
yeah.
captured what she saw, but
That's crazy. Yeah.
yeah.
Well, when Bill and I were investigating at that jail, Rob saw a shadow figure, and I didn't see it. And I'm not sure if you saw it, Bill, in the moment, but Bill had a camera running,
yeah, I did not
and
see it in the moment.
the camera caught it. But like I didn't see it. I was looking in that direction. I didn't see it. But Rob was freaking out when it happened. Like I remember him being like really freaked out. And then it was
Well,
clear in the
Rob
video.
never freaks out.
What do you mean, Rob being scared? What the fuck, Rob? I hope you're watching him right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I remember that. I believe if I remember correctly, he saw like a full shadow figure walk through the one room. And so Tanya and I were in the hallway. I believe so. You and Rob were in one room looking into the other. Me and Tanya were in the hallway with our cameras. So we camera right to that
Yeah.
doorway, and what I captured was a black ball come out the door and down the hallway.
It was real fast, but
Damn.
you could totally see it come in and out, like right out of the
Yeah,
view. It's wild.
Damn. Yeah.
yeah,
So
that was crazy. The yeah, the one time we were investigating at White Hill Mansion, and there was probably about 10 or 12 of us down in the basement, and we sent one person on their own with a recorder into the back of the basement near the furnace to do an EVP session. And while he's back there, me and three other people heard this blood curdling scream. There's 12 of us, only three of us heard it. It was captured on the recorder,
Oh wow.
but the guy who was holding the recorder did not hear it. Like
That's
it
crazy.
was so loud. I ran upstairs to go check on everybody else, make sure that it wasn't one of them screaming.
Wow.
And
What do you
but
like, an
most of the
owl?
people there didn't even hear it. It was so bizarre.
I remember the night we did the investigation at the jail, and it was like super windy. Remember that? So every now and then
Yeah.
a door would slam, and it would scare the shit out of everyone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was really windy that night.
Yeah, it was just this. Everything about that night was just super creepy.
Yeah, so that was the I remember we were in A4 and Tanya was doing we were in
Right.
you guys were in the one main room with the fireplace. Me and Tanya were in the hallway. She was under Estes method.
Yeah.
And so I saw this gray mist. It was almost forming a figure, but not quite. Kind of walked down the hallway towards us, and I freaked out a little bit. And I started like, oh my god, I just saw this. And Rob's like, well, what did you see? And I'm like, it was about 4 feet tall. It's like it was a little gray mist. I'm like, dude, you saw it too? He goes, no, but like people see the gray like grays, like alien
Yeah.
grays in here. And I think that's what I saw. I think I saw it starting to manifest, and then it poofed away.
Yeah, it's crazy that you caught that because Rob had told me that day before the investigation started that A4 was like the most where the most activity was always taking place, and also that people had seen gray aliens in
Mm-hmm.
that part of the facility, and then you had that experience.
Yeah. So I was doing another investigation there. Again, we were in A4, and we're in that room, and we're just kind of like getting equipment ready, figuring out where we want to go. And one of the women that was there, she was recording, and she started freaking out. I'm like, "What's wrong?" She goes, I just on camera we caught a large gray creature standing behind you, like behind me." And they said it must have been about 7-8 feet tall, like really thin gray. She said it kind of looked like a gray alien, but way taller, standing right behind me. Actually, I believe, if I remember correctly, I think Lori was there that night, and in someplace else in the prison, she found there's a 15-foot tall ceiling, and there was a handprint on the ceiling, like a fresh handprint
No
on the ceiling.
shit.
Yeah, they got a picture of it. Yeah, that was
Man.
wild. I've had a few other people tell me that they saw gray figures running around in A4.
Yeah, I definitely had heard that, being said that some people had seen something like that. And it was crazy that you happen to have something really similar happen to you.
Yeah, and the thing that really made it real for me was like I saw it, I started to describe it, and then Rob finished my description for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was
Man.
one hell of a night.
Yeah. It's a fun place to investigate because it's
It
huge.
really is.
Yeah, there's a lot. And there's all those tunnels underground, and the whole facility's large. There's like separate buildings and
Yeah.
multiple floors. It's really cool.
So I'll tell this story about the tunnels. It has nothing to do with the aliens or anything like that. It's just a fun story. It was that same night. Rob had never been in the tunnels before. He has never been in the tunnels since. We got him to go in that one night. And so we get, I don't know, maybe like 50, 60 feet into the tunnel. And he starts telling us the story about the demon dog that's seen down there. And Tanya immediately just goes, "Oh, come here, puppy. Come here. I got some treats for you." And Rob just turns to her and goes, "Stop that. Don't do that." And then he left the tunnels.
Oh, man.
By the way, Rob never gets scared though, right?
No, of
No,
course.
no, of course not. Just want to let you guys know in about half an hour at 11:05 p.m. EST, we have Ghost Box Radio coming on right after us, and his guest is. Let me go to the group chat and find out. His guest is Troy Taylor, author of One Night in Washington: True Stories of America's Most Haunted President. So be sure to catch Ghost
Very
Box
cool.
Radio with Greg Boggin and his guest Troy Taylor right after this. Tune in. The great sultry voice of Greg Boggin will put you to sleep in the right way. So, yeah. But yeah, so
Nice. Yeah.
you guys ran this episode. I was about to ask, do you guys have anything else on your mind? Really? I don't know what to ask at this point.
I mean,
My brain is so fucking overloaded with the information that I want to like dig deep on.
oh man,
Ah,
I love talking about the topic, but and there's so
yeah.
much going on right now that it's easy to talk about it.
Yeah.
Now that we have a group chat, we can change the name to where it's not just a fucking link and podcast stuff. But if you ever see something that's like in interesting, and I know it's rare in the alien scene, but if you see anything that's like a headline or a quick read, throw it in that chat because I'd love to
Oh
read it.
yeah, I definitely will. I definitely
You
will.
don't know what you just asked for, dude.
Yeah.
Like I have a backlog of books that Mike has suggested that I haven't gotten
Yeah.
through yet. I've gotten through a lot of them, but not all.
Nice.
I got a
Yeah.
backlog of podcasts that he sent me. Like
Yeah.
this is
I
our
can
conversations
bombard
all
you.
the time.
Yeah.
I fucking love it, dude. Because
I love it too, though. Yeah.
I they use the genre in a lot of aliens and paranormal stuff, but if we ever get to like alien UFO stargaze hunt, whatever it's called, um I create found footage films, like the old vintage, like low quality.
Oh,
Like
cool.
I intentionally upload my videos at 360p because I don't intend on catching paranormal evidence or UFO evidence as it happens. I tell I tell the story after it happens to like relive it. So, because
Cool.
I personally, if I'm in a if I'm at a event where people are there to learn, then I'm a paranormal investigator because I investigate with them.
Mm.
But if I'm ever doing it on my own or like private investigation, I'm just a paranormal experiencer to where I experience it and learn and gain knowledge. And I still research like through like professors and like seeing what's like online and credible. But
Yeah.
like I'm not the type of guy who like constantly has a 1080p ultra night vision camera in front of me editing 8 hours of footage. I That's just not me. So I literally just kind of like hold the camera at my chest, and if I experience anything at all, the second that I experience it, my footage starts there, and it captures the reaction, and then like we'll like talk amongst each other about what we just saw and experience it together on film, the story itself. So yeah,
Cool.
yeah.
Yeah. Right on. That's awesome. I love
So
watching that stuff, and I know Bill puts together some great videos as well of his investigations. They're always
yeah.
fun to watch.
I
Oh
try.
yeah. And also his Ouija board showcases.
Yeah.
I fucking
Cool.
love those. Like I don't say it enough, but the passion you put into just the videos alone is fucking awesome, dude.
Well, yeah, Ouija boards have kind of become an obsession, which I am starting to design a UFO Ouija board.
It's just
So
gonna be
Oh,
letters on a metal
cool.
pan.
Nice. I definitely. I'll buy one of those. Bill, I'll be one of your first customers when you build
yeah,
one of those.
I'll definitely let you know when I have like 4 different ideas kind of floating around.
Yeah.
I'm trying to like get it down into one good design. So yeah, when I have that, I'll definitely let you know.
I just thought about it. This may not work, but hear me out. I found out through them by TikTok. Do you know those like rain pans you could
Yeah.
things?
Yeah.
They're saucer like, and they have
Right.
like divots where like letters could go. Would that work? Like, so it's instead of having a planchette, like you would have to create divots because like there's not enough for the whole alphabet and numbers. But if you create your own, instead of having a planchette, the spirit could just like poltergeist it and like flick it and make the sound.
Don't get ahead of me, Trevor. I'm actually working on something that makes noise.
That's what she said. I'm sorry. Okay.
Um, yeah, no, I got a couple different pieces of equipment and whatnot in the works that we're kind of down that rabbit hole a little bit.
Cool. We support rabbit holes in all forms. We love animals.
True story.
True story.
Also, speaking of like our passions here, I have my band, so I'll plug my band.
Absolutely.
And we're working on our first full-length album. So we're in the process of recording. So I can't wait for that to come out. We have an EP that's out, which is kind of like demo quality, but you can find it on Spotify and iTunes. Again, it's Phenomenon. And follow us on
it is really good. I've
Instagram.
listened to it. It's really good.
Thank you.
Give me 1 second and I will actually do that.
It's kind of like like grunge and classic rock sort of vibe. But the Instagram, it's phenomenon_rock, letter N roll. Okay. And on Facebook, it's just there it is, Phenomenon rock and roll.
So you say grunge mixed with classic rock. Is it almost kind of like an Alice in Chains type deal?
It can be in there. Yeah, it kind of has elements of like, the first album that we're putting out, it's going to be about 11 or 12 songs. We've only recorded the first one. Okay. But the songs some of them are really straight ahead rock and roll, and they kind of sound almost like a Stone Temple Pilots type of like bars and that type of thing. Some of them do have like an Alice in Chains or Soundgarden vibe to them. So instrumentally, it's kind of like in that style of rock and roll. So like 90s grunge / like some classic rock sounds, because it's a lot of like guitar driven, and then it's a trio. So it's just 3 guys. But yeah, I think people will dig it. There's not a ton of like rock that's in that style these days.
Not these days, no. Yeah.
So that was one of the things, is I kind of wanted to drive that sound again, and people seem to dig it. We play all over the Hudson Valley, so you can check us out there, and find our music on Spotify and iTunes and all that good stuff.
Let me actually open up Spotify and share my screen. You guys are gonna see my playlist, but I really don't care.
Cool. This is our logo here with us getting abducted into a UFO. So these are our band T-shirts that I got.
Okay, I like that you guys are still playing while you're being abducted.
Yeah.
I'm horrible at spelling, and I can't see StreamYard because I'm on Spotify. Can you spell your band?
Yeah, it's PHENOMENON.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
sometimes it's hard to find it, since like we're kind of obscure, but you can put in a name of a song, and that would help. But like Something's Gotta Give is a name of a song.
Something's
Gotta give.
Oh yeah, here we go.
Up.
I got you.
Cool.
Let me minimize that so I can do the damn thing. Share screen. Window. Apparently, I have to not minimize the screen to share the window. Okay. Here we go. Got you. There they are.
Awesome. Yeah. Cool.
Follow. Now you're at 4. It doesn't load. I still look like an ass. Okay.
Yeah, right on.
Now you see all my fucking. There's my recently played.
Nice.
My favorite band's of Avenged Sevenfold, but not like they need the fucking promo.
Listen to them.
If I play one of your songs, is it going to get copyright striked?
I don't know. I doubt it.
Okay, here. I'm not even sure.
The writer of the song and performer is right here.
Yeah. If you're gonna play anything, I guess.
Okay, let me know if you guys can hear it, because I'm not sure how audio works on StreamYard if it's coming through Spotify. So let me know if you guys hear this at all.
But play. All right, yeah, go ahead.
Can you guys hear that?
No, it's not coming.
No, okay.
That's okay. People see it, and thanks for.
I can hear it.
For plugging it. Yeah.
Fuck yeah, dude. God.
So if anybody is heading to the Hudson Valley for any reason,
I can't hear a word you're saying. Okay, that was extremely loud.
so if anybody's in heading to the Hudson Valley for anything, whether you're going to Mid Orange or the Shanley or the Pine Bush Museum or anything else, definitely go see if Phenomenon is playing that weekend, and go see them. I've seen them a couple of times. They are fantastic. And I'm not just saying that because Mike's my friend.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you.
I just listened to 23 seconds and I already want to see them live. So like, go see them,
Right
please.
on. Thanks, brother.
And Bill, you're gonna hate me, but we can't go one podcast without doing this. Sorry, had to.
So, sorry, Mike. Every episode, he has to bring up Zach Baggins.
So it started. I forget what it started one of our first episodes, and we talked about like our upbringing, right? How we got started.
Yeah.
And I'm like, before I was old enough to like actually drive and go to places, what got me interested was Ghost Adventures and Zach Bagans, and that was just supposed to be like a one-time thing, right? Next time I mentioned something about Zach Bagans, then the third episode I'm like, I mentioned him like for a second, and then on that third time, Bill goes, and what else? And I go, and what else? What? And he goes, you said Zach Bagans, and I go, yeah. And he goes, what else? I'm like, there's no what else. And he goes, well, you mention them every episode now. I'm like, fuck off. So at this point, I just gotta
Tradition
like
now. Yeah.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. So Trevor's either going to get a restraining order from Zach Baggins or start a relationship with him.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is music based. So I want to tell one quick story. We got 20 minutes. So
he can't finish it.
Yeah.
He doesn't do quick stories.
Fuck you. So this is back whenever Zach Bagans dropped his album Necrofusion, a little EDM album about his experiences and whatever seasons, right? And so he's not a fucking artist. He didn't drop it on any streaming platforms, no nothing. He released a CD, and if you didn't buy the CD, you didn't get to listen to his music. I bought the CD, and eventually got put on iTunes. Never got put on Spotify. And so I got it on iTunes too. And then a decade passes. And then I'm like, I'm dropping iTunes. I was on my family plan, and iTunes compared to Spotify to me is just not good. So I got Spotify, was using it for years, and I'm like, and then I forgot about the album. What was that? Do anybody just hear like random people talking?
It was an echo.
Oh.
Might have just been some feedback. Yeah.
Oh.
It
didn't sound like either of you, so that was weird.
It was
Okay.
That was weird. All right, so yeah. So anyway, fuck, I lost. Oh yeah. So I found the actual CD in a drawer that while I was moving. I'm like, hey, I wonder if I didn't have a CD drive, so I logged into my old iTunes account, dragged the files over to Spotify, and I made a Spotify playlist of local files on Spotify, made it public, then shared it out saying, hey, it's on Spotify, so to my 90 followers, if you want to listen to it here. Apparently, somehow, one of those 90 followers shared it out, another person shared it out, and it got shared out so many times that not even a week later, Zach Bagans said Necrofusion is now available on Spotify. And I looked at that post for a solid hour thinking, I can't help but think I'm the reason that this happened.
Yeah.
So
you guys are connected now.
So Zach Bagans,
Yeah.
more than likely, Zach Bagan's secretary saw the fucking post and goes, Zach, this motherfucker's trying to do anything he can.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, I told you he's either going to get a restraining order or a relationship.
He's got that museum, right? Have either of you guys ever gone to that?
I have not.
I have not.
I'm not a fan of Zach Baggins, but I would definitely go to his museum.
And for
It
the
looks
record,
cool. I know he's like a lot of people don't like him. He's kind of obnoxious, but that museum does look awesome. I would totally go to that.
And to be honest, I know I talk about him on podcasts, but believe it or not, outside of this podcast, I don't talk about him because I haven't watched an episode of Ghost Adventures in 4 years because he went from like focusing evidence as it happens. Because like on old episodes, if something happens, whether it's real or not, he actually like stayed in the building and I talked about it on camera, and the vibe was there. It kept the vibe. Now it's like all the evidence is shown all at fucking once, and then the last 20 minutes of the episodes, they're just them chilling on a bench outside talking about it. I'm like, this isn't a goddamn campfire. Go back in there, bitch.
Yeah.
And I just lost interest in like the structure of the show, and I'm like,
he's super dramatic.
Yeah, exactly.
And he's just like abusive to all of his friends. You know, he's like total asshole.
Because he's too afraid to go do it himself, so he makes everyone else do it.
Yeah. It's now it's like let's have the crew stay out here and let's take one camera in and like, okay, we investigated this place for 3 days. Now let's probably now let's put a whole fucking studio outside on a park bench and talk for an hour, and that hour turns into 20 minutes. It's like, all right, wrap. Then I'm like, you used to be cool.
Yeah.
Now you're just some 40-year-old guy acting like you're 20. Like, come on now.
He's been at it for a while. I mean, that guy has had some
and now he has his own production company and doing like 4 other shows at once. I'm like, dude, you're oversaturating the fuck out of this, and it's not watchable anymore.
No.
I'm sure to like new viewers, it's still like cool and creepy. Like if you're that kid who only finds haunted attractions scary, then cool. But like to me, it's like, dude, come on.
Yeah, actual paranormal investigators tend to not like him.
Yeah, and
so,
that's
credit where credit's due. You know, he kept it popular for a long time.
Yeah.
Without him, it probably would have died off. But he also is the source of a lot of really bad information, including information about Ouija boards and Zozo and all that other crap.
Dude, that Zozo episode that he did was so fucking terrible. So, I mean, bullshit. But at the time, I didn't know it was bullshit because I wasn't educated. But like, this random thing undid my belt one night, and I just sat there on my couch at my dad's house.
That was Ghostbusters.
No, that was Ghost Adventures.
No. That happened in Ghostbusters, where they got it.
Oh, okay. I was watching it with my dad because my dad, the fucking Kentucky game ended or something, and he wasn't tired, so he was fine. And so I was watching it, and I told him, it's like, hey, I don't care. My dad doesn't believe in ghosts, but he supports me, and we know. So he's like, I'll watch one episode. No, sure. I'm like, hey, just an FYI, he may over and embellish shit. And he's watched a few episodes like in the past, so he knows what to like expect. And he just wants a creepy vibe and to just be intrigued, right? He doesn't give a fuck if it's true. Halfway through that episode, he looks at me and goes, I thought you said this would be interesting. I'm like, and I look back at him and I go, give it another chance, please. That episode was so fucking stupid.
Yeah, some are good. I mean, it's a mixed bag. Every once in a while I'll watch, and there's decent episodes in there. But one show that really grabbed me, and I talk about this with Bill sometime. Bill actually turned me on to it. Was Hellier. I really liked those 2 seasons of Hellier.
Yeah.
And I wonder.
Hellier is fantastic.
Yeah, it was really good. I mean, it was really like you got like sucked into that, and was really hoping they were going to do a 3rd season.
They are currently filming season 3.
Oh, is that right?
Yes.
One show
that's going to be released in 2025.
Oh, awesome.
One show that I really loved, it's over and done now. It got canceled about 2 years ago. Actually, oddly enough, it got canceled about the same time that Project Fear got canceled. But Portals to Hell. I loved that show.
Yeah,
it only happened. It's the one
Katrina Weidman and
Jack Osborne.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I've definitely.
That was it seemed like a genuine show, but it didn't have all the flashy animations and transitions like what Ghost Adventures does or whatever. It was literally just lower thirds on screen. It looked like a very well edited YouTube video. It looks like it was amateur but professional. I like the way it looked. I love the way it looked. But yeah.
If you like Hellier, you should definitely check out The Unbinding. It's their.
I did see that. Yeah, I saw that one too. That was good.
Yeah, that was really good. And Greg and Dana Newkirk have the Haunted Objects podcast, which I absolutely love their podcast. I don't necessarily like them as people, but as paranormal investigators, they are
Don't
fantastic.
don't start shit. Don't start shit.
I've
Yeah.
talked to Greg Newkirk. Like
Oh, okay.
it's fine.
I thought you meant that in like an actual like he's a bad person.
No. I just
Oh,
it,
okay.
like outside of the paranormal, he's not the kind of person I'd want to hang around with.
Oh,
But when it
okay.
comes to the paranormal, I
Mhm.
really like the way they investigate and their take on things. And
I kind of
Gotcha.
feel the same way, to be
He's
honest
a
with you.
respectable human being.
But they
Gotcha.
do. I feel like they do a pretty thorough job with like investigating. I kind of like their approach that they have.
yeah,
Um,
they're very open minded. They're
yeah.
they're critical of everything, but they're also open to anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like the best way to approach it, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they have sort of different approaches. He's like maybe a little bit more practical, rational, and his wife approaches it from like a more like esoteric, spiritual.
Witchcraft kind of.
Yeah, so they have kind of, it's almost like the same like Ed and Lorraine Warren duo, where
Oh,
one is kind of like spiritual, the other one
don't say
is
that.
yeah.
Like their last episode of their podcast was on Ed and Lorraine, and they went on this little rant about how they hate when people compare them because how much they completely dislike them and try to differ from them as best they can. It's a really interesting episode.
Weird. Yeah, it's a weird take. Why would they? I mean, why would they dislike them? They're like, they're.
I'm gonna do a really weird transition because we're almost about out of time, and we still got to do the outro and shout everyone out. But speaking of the word esoteric, Rock Island Esoteric Expo. Be sure to tune in. Tune in. The fuck. We're gonna be doing a live stream, so tune in. Greg Balkin's gonna be doing a live stream. Go get haunted. I'm sure will. I'm sure I will. Mike, if you can make it out, Bill's coming.
Awesome.
I'll have my whole Ouija board museum there.
Yes, and be sure to get tickets. Go to Rock Island Esoteric Expo on Facebook. What you're looking at now, it'll show the list of all of the pictures and graphics of who's coming. And if you want to see a video of them, their logos, and everything that they do and make and show, I will be slowly making the promos for them as well. I made a few. You can see them. I made one for Empty Casket and everyone else. Go, it's going to be great. It is the Paracon, the expo of the Midwest. It's growing I can't talk apparently after an hour and 20 minutes. Almost 2 hours. Anyway, it is the fastest growing Paracon expo out there. We got some big names. We got big names coming. We got Ghosted. We got Get Haunted. We got Greg Balkin. We have Nesper. We have Bill Bryan, and I almost said Ouija casket. The fuck, empty casket. I need to stop talking. Anyway, attend. Go check it out. It's gonna be a fun fucking time.
Where exactly is that?
It is in Rock Island, Illinois. If you need a better idea, if you don't know where that's at, it's a half hour away from the Iowa border. It's like north, like Illinois.
Cool.
Like you can drive across the bridge into Iowa in like 20 minutes. So yeah.
Oh, good. We could go see Corey Taylor.
Yeah.
Oh, that was a joke. That was a joke. Calm down. I'm not that fucking stupid.
I don't know, Trevor.
But anyway, thank you for joining us, Mike.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. My
Absolutely.
pleasure.
Before we talk about our dumbasses in the stream, anything you want to promote, share, or talk about, the floor is yours.
I already plugged the band, but again, the name's Phenomenon. If anybody wants to check it out, we're on Instagram and Facebook. So Phenomenon Rock and Roll. And then I'm going to be on a show this year. It's supposed to come out. It's called Haunted Discoveries Family Spirits. And it's a spinoff of the Haunted Discovery show that Brandon Alvis and his group are putting out there. And it's supposed to be a show about people who had paranormal experiences that they think are with past loved ones, like family members.
Mhm.
So it's a cool show, and it's supposed to come out at some point 2025. So Haunted Adventures, I'm sorry, Haunted Discoveries Family Spirits is the name. So yeah, check it out.
Haunted Discoveries and Brandon Alvis. Never met him personally, but our good friends Ernie and Dean Pack love them. Everything I've saw them put out is fucking amazing. So go check them out too.
Yeah, absolutely. He's a good guy.
Yeah. And on that note, see, we got 10 minutes ish. I don't want to talk for that.
You got 5 minutes.
No, because of the radio, he starts at 11:05, so 10:05.
Ah.
Yeah, but that's a lot of technical shit. But anyway, I'm Trevor. Fuck my name. I'm Haunted Faith, and VHF 82 Productions films. I need to start saying films. God damn it! I changed the subcategory. I'm Haunted Faith and VHF 82 films. I create paranormal mixed with found footage. If you like to see stories told in a creepy vintage way, if you like to see short films that are just creepy in general, go check me out. I'm on YouTube, and very soon we'll have my own creepy environment website. That's coming in the next 2 weeks, hopefully. So go check me out there. And I'm just a guy with a camera that does creepy shit legally. Let me fucking. I realized how that sounded after I said it. And we have Bill Bryan over here with Empty Casket Paranormal.com. He does creepy things with wires. If you like ghost hunting equipment, he has some new stuff in the works. He has some old stuff that is currently still in the works because you can always
improving.
Yeah, always improving. And he also has Empty Casket Talking Board Museum. He travels, he shows you cool Ouija boards, he tells you the history, how to use them. He also teaches you how not to be afraid of cardboard. So, on that note, thank you all so much for watching. I don't know why that was not a salute. Anyway, thank you all so much for watching. If you know, being hyper for the first time in a while feels weird. That's a whole story I'll share later. But anyway, thank you all so much for joining. It's been great. Steven, Candy, everyone, Kaylee, Sean. Yeah. We'll talk to you soon. Love you and sleep safe. I forgot to end stream.